gentlemen, welcome, welcome. It's a wonderful afternoon on the last day. Your Excellency, please make yourself comfortable. We're thrilled to have you here. And we're going to get started right away. If we can bring the people in from the coffee area, we'll get started momentarily. His Excellency, the Minister from Mongolia, has arrived, and we'll be getting underway momentarily. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome, welcome. Here we are on the last day of UNEA, and look at the beautiful weather. The sun is reminding us that there is hope at the end of a long 2 weeks, and reminds us how lucky we are to all be brought together in fellowship around our resources and our planet. My name is Robin Anderson. I have the honor of moderating today. We have an extraordinarily illustrious panel of actors who will be with us today. And right across the globe, we can see the passion that exists. So today we're here to talk about moving from innovation to impact. We're going to talk about the policy environment needed to advance the innovation on the specific issues of water, soil, and nutrient resilience. And we're going to come at this from many angles. So it is my great honor to begin today by bringing up Mr. Rashid Farhadi, who is the Director of Cooperation, Partnership, and Communication for the Ministry of Energy, Transition, and Sustainable Development. Mr. Farhadi, you are the UNEP focal point. We're so thrilled to have you here. Please come and join us. We look forward to your remarks.
Thank you, Madam Co-Facilitator, Excellencies, distinguished delegates. Allow me first to commend the convener of this dialogue and to express Morocco's pride. Sorry. Aidil Salah. Okay. Sorry for this technical issue. Allow me first to commend the conveners of this dialogue and to express Morocco's pride in co-organizing this event with Costa Rica, the OCP Group, and the CGIAR. This discussion reflects the inclusive and delivery-oriented multilateralism that UNEP promotes, where science, policy, and investment work together to turn commitments into real impact. Our exchange today directly supports the implementation of UNEP 6 Resolutions 13 and 14, which call for integrated land-water governance, stronger soil health, and evidence-based nutrient management. It also advances the SDGs and the Rio Conventions by focusing on the nexus land, water, and nutrients that sustains resilience for millions of people. To address climate and food insecurity, we must think in systems. Land, water, and nutrients are interdependent, and climate-resilient food systems depend not only on innovation in crops or finance, but also on how we manage soils. Soils are carbon sinks, water buffers, and biodiversity reservoirs. Yet the world still loses 24 billion tons of fertile soil every year. Investing in soil health is therefore a priority for adaptation and one of the most cost-effective mitigation pathways when combined with efficient science-based nutrient use. A paradox remains. Some regions face nutrient surpluses, while many parts of the global south face deficits that undermine productivity. Improving nutrient use efficiency through localized, crop-specific, and climate-aware strategies is now a scientific, economic, and environmental necessity. Precision fertilization, supported by soil diagnostics and real-time farmers advisory, can raise yields, reduce losses, and lower emissions. Excellencies, distinguished delegates. For Morocco, the system's logic is lived reality. With less than 600 cubic meters of renewable water per capita, structural water stress and soil degradation threaten our food systems and rural livelihoods. Under the vision of His Majesty King Mohammed VI, may God assist him, Morocco is implementing an integrated land-water nutrient approach. Through the first domain of transformation of National Strategy on Sustainable Development 2035 was dedicated to the nexus water, energy, and food security. The National Water Plan 2050, including interbasin transfers, artificial recharge, wastewater reuse, and localized irrigation. The National Program for Drinking Water and Irrigation to improve efficiency and secure supply. The Green Generation 2030 strategy, strengthening soil fertility, sustainable inputs, and agroecological practices. And finally, emerging initiatives on soil preservation, erosion control, and soil mapping to guide nutrient strategies. These frameworks are delivering results. Morocco modernized irrigated perimeters with sensor technologies, expanded direct seeding, and supported farmers in sustainable practices. Through the Al-Mutmir program, OCP deploys large-scale soil diagnostics and tailored fertilizer recommendations directly supporting UNEA 6 Resolution 14. At the regional level, Morocco's leadership through the adaptation of African agriculture initiatives continues to advance climate resilient transformation. At the 5th Ministerial Conference in April 2025, African ministers adopted a declaration positioning agroforestry, soil restoration, efficient water management, and sustainable nutrient use as pillars of Africa's adaptation agenda. The initiative is now deploying a continental program on climate-smart agriculture, strengthening monitoring systems, and expanding South-South partnerships. This demonstrates how Morocco is contributing to a coherent Africa-wide approach that links science, policy, and implementation. Excellencies, distinguished delegates, integrated soil, water nutrient management is not only technical. It is a political choice that shapes equity, stability, and sustainability. What is needed now is alignment of capacities, financing, and governance. The world stands at a crossroads. By choosing coherence and ambition, we can build resilient ecosystems, secure food systems, and protect the communities that depend on them. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Ferrari. It's so exciting to see the leadership of a country on the African continent, and now we have the benefit of having leadership from the Asian continent. But not only in Asia, we have the benefit of having leadership for the world with us today. It is my great honor to introduce His Excellency Mr. Battar Bat, the Minister of Environment and Climate Change in Mongolia, and the President of the upcoming CCD COP.
Thank you so much. Эрхэмсэг 80 татагта эрхэм төлөөлөгчдөө газар ус хүнсний нэгдсэн менежментийг үндэсний бодлогод тусгах, тогтолцоотой уялдуулах зорилготой олон талт хамтын ажиллагааны талаар хэлцэх энэхүү чухал уулзалтад Монгол улс оролцож буйгаадаа баяртай байна. Уур амьсгалын өөрчлөлтөд дасан зогтсон тогтвортой газарнуудад бат бөх хүнсний тогтолцоо нь экологийн эрүүл мэнд төдийгүй ард иргэдийн амжиргаа, усны нөөц, эдийн засгийн тогтвортой байдлыг хангахад зайлшгүй шаардлагатай. Тогтвортой хөгжлийн зорилтууд НУП-ийн байгаль орчны ассамблеийн шийдвэрүүд Риогийн конвенцүүдэд нийцсэн бодлого хэрэгжүүлэх нь хүн ба байгальд олон талын үр өгөөж бүхий уялдаа холбоотой шийдлүүдийг бий болгодог.
Excellencies, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen, Mongolia is honored to join this dialogue on policy frameworks, enabling environment and multilateral processes for integrating land, water, and nutrient management into national systems. Resilient landscapes and sustainable food systems are critical not only for climate adaptation and ecosystem health, but also for securing livelihoods, water resources, and economic stability. Aligning national action with the SDGs, UNEP resolutions, and the Rio Conventions ensures that every intervention delivers multiple benefits for people and nature.
Монгол улс бодлого, санхүүжилт, инновацийг нэгтгэсэн практик шийдлүүдийг амжилттай туршаа хэрэгжүүлж ирсэн. Тухайлбал малын индексжүүлсэн даатгал нь зуд гангийн эрсдлийг бууруулж, хөдөөгийн зээлжих орчныг докторжуулан, бэлчээрийн ухаалаг менежментийг дэмжиж байна. ноолуур сүүний өртгийн сүлжээний хувьд хувийн хвшлийн түншлэл, хоршооллын загвар, мөшгөх тогтолцоо, чанар суурилсан урамшууллын систем нь өрхийн орлогыг нэмэгдүүлж, өр ашгийг сайжруулж, газар усны тогтвортой ашиглалтыг бэхжүүлж байна. Эдгээр туршлагууд нь хөрс, ус, шимт хичээлийн төсвөртэй байдлыг нэмэгдүүлэхийн зэрэгцээ, хөдөөгийн иргэдийн амжиргааг сайжруулах боломжтойг харуулж байгаа.
Mongolia has demonstrated practical solutions linking policy, finance, and innovation. Index-based livestock insurance protects herders from drought and drought, stabilizing rural lending and encouraging better pasture management. In the Kashmir and milk value chains, partnerships with private actors, cooperative models, traceability systems, and quality-based incentives have increased incomes, improved efficiency, and promoted sustainable land and water stewardship. These examples show how integrated approaches can strengthen soil, water, and nutrient resilience while supporting rural communities.
Цөлжилтөд тэмцэх тухай Нобелийн конвенцийн талуудын 17 дугаар баг хурлыг даргалагч зохион байгуулагч орны хувьд Монгол улс газрын доройдлыг тэглэх үндэсний тодорхойлсон UNEP биологийн олон янз бүрийн стратеги үйл ажиллагааны зорилтуудыг уялдуулан инновацийг бодит шийдэл болгох 3 санаачлагыг дэвшүүлэхээр ажиллаж байна. Үүнд малчтын уламжлалт арга туршлагыг шинжлэх, нэгдсэн менежменттэй хослуулан бэлчээр нутгийн хамгаалах, бэлчээрийн тэргүүлэх санаачлаг, гандуу бүсийн төсвөрлөх чадварыг нэмэгдүүлэхэд ус ба газрын менежментийг хөхүүлэн дэмжих санаачлаг, дэд бүтцийг байгаль дээлтэйгээр төлөвлөн урт хугацааны зардлыг бууруулах зорилго бүхий, байгальд суурилсан шийдэл бүхий, дэд бүтцэц гэсэн энэ 3 санаачлаг болно.
As the host of UNCCD COP17, Mongolia will launch 3 initiatives linking land degradation neutrality, nationally determined contributions, and National Biodiversity Strategy and Action Plan goals. The Rangeland Flagship Initiative applies pastoral practices to protect rangelands. The Land Water Nexus Initiative manages land and water together to build climate resilience. And the Nature-Based Solutions for Sustainable Infrastructure Initiative uses natural measures to safeguard infrastructure and cut long-term costs.
Эдгээр санаачлал нь холимог санхүүжилт, ногоон боон зэрэг, шинэлэг санхүүгийн механизм болон хиймэл оюун ухаан, мөшөг тогтолцоо зэрэг дижитал технологиг ашиглан үр ашгийг нэмэгдүүлэх, нээлттэй ил дод байдлыг хангах давуу талтай. Ирээдүйн өсөлт өрсөлдөх чадварыг нэмэгдүүлэхийн тулд Монгол улс байгаль дээлтэй, нөөцийн үр ашигтай, тойрог эдийн засгийн зарчмуудыг хэрэгжүүлж, усны аюулгүй байдлыг хамгаалж, экосистемийг сэргээж, ногоон ажлын байрыг нэмэгдүүлэх зорилттой ажиллаж байна. Үр дүнд хүрэхийн тулд нэгдсэн бодлого, шинэлэг санхүүжилт, олон улсын хамтын ажиллагаа чухал байна.
These initiatives leverage blended finance, innovative instruments such as green bonds, and digital tools like AI and traceability platforms to scale solutions efficiently and transparently. Circularity and sustainability are essential for Mongolia to reduce environmental pressures, diversify the economy, secure water, protect ecosystems, and create sustainable jobs. Delivering these outcomes depend on integrated policies, innovative finance, and strong international cooperation.
Монгол улс газар ус хүнсний тогтолцоог уур амьсгалын өөрчлөлтөд төсвөртэй, хүртээмжтэй, доктортой болгоход тууштай ажиллах бөгөөд шийдлүүдийг өргөжүүлэх, засаглалыг бэхжүүлэх, хэнийг ч орхигдуулахгүй байх зарчмын хүрээнд бүх түншүүдтэйгээ хамтран ажиллахад бэлэн байна. Thank you.
Mongolia remains committed to building resilient, inclusive, and sustainable land, water, and food systems, and looks forward to partnering with all stakeholders to scale solutions, strengthen governance, and ensure that no hectare, community, or ecosystem is left behind. Thank you.
Isn't that an amazing vision? Who likes land? Raise your hand. Who likes water? Raise your hand. Who wants to go to Mongolia? Yes! We need all of these ecosystems functioning together, and it's now my honor to call up a panel of experts that are going to talk about some of the framing we need to get those systems into place and to treat them with respect and nourish them in the way they need to be nourished. Dr. Lee Winowecki from the C4 campus. Lee, please come up. One of the world's most eminent soil scientists. Lee, it's wonderful to have you here and your lab just across the way. Dule. Dule is the Chief of Staff of AGRA. Tulelene is here. She's going to talk about some of the things we need to do to nourish our soils. Dr. Shirley Tarawali, the Assistant Director General and the Secretary to the ILRI Board of Trustees. International Livestock Research Institute is based here in Nairobi. And Michael Millet-Solon from WWF is joining us here as well. Esteemed panelists, I'm just going to move next to you for the conversation. Perfect. Ladies and gentlemen, so this is a wonderful panel that's got a great range of engagement in our ecosystems. Lee, we're going to kick off with you. You have the passion of the Coalition of Action for Soil Health. Can you tell us a little bit about what we need to do on soils from innovation to implementation?
Great, thank you so much, everyone. I'm really happy to be here. I'm a soil scientist. How many soil scientists in the room? All right, yes, don't be afraid, be proud. And we have a responsibility now to translate science, data, evidence into action. Many of us have spent our entire careers filling these data and knowledge gaps on soil health, on land degradation, as the keynote speaker opened with, and we must make sure these data are leveraged to inform policy, implementation, and the F word. Now, I know the F word is not part of the title, but we need financing. Farmers, pastoralists, stewards of the soil need this financing. And so I urge us to translate these data into evidence that can de-risk the financing. Here in Africa, we're in a unique position, and I hope it will motivate other continents. We have the Africa Fertilizer and Soil Health Action Plan. We turned into the Nairobi Declaration, then the Kampala Declaration, which means we have the most innovative, transformative food system agenda on the planet right here in Africa. On top of that, we have an African Union Commissioner who is a what? He's a soil scientist. So if we can't get the soil health agenda done in Africa now, this is our opportunity. So I really think that all the alignment is there. We have political will. We have some donors. So now we need that evidence. We need that evidence to show how land management is impacting soil health. For example, governments are developing, literally right now, their national soil health strategy. Their national soil health policy is part of the action plan. We can deliver the maps, the data to inform that, and possibly include soil health in the nationally determined contributions, in the national biodiversity plans with soil biodiversity indicators. So I'm really excited to be in this moment and to have these data and evidence and the momentum around the Coalition of Action for Soil Health to bring these data to life.
It's fantastically. Dule, to keep that soil healthy, we need to nourish it. There's been some specific work on the continent related to that. Do you want to talk a little bit about some of the policy work that's underway?
Great, thanks, Robin. It's always hard to speak after Leanne. But yes, as AGRA, I represent AGRA. I'm the Chief of Staff at AGRA. And AGRA exists to work in the food systems lens. So we don't just talk about soil only, we talk about everything. So it's the water, the land requirements, the financing, the F word, that's required. And we support governments in making sure that the action plans that they produce, the declarations that they sign, turn into policies and policies into action. And so as AGRA, we supported the Africa Fertilizer and Soil Health Summit that was held and the Nairobi Declaration. And so the movement we've seen is moving away from just making sure we have volumes of fertilizer being produced or made available to farmers, but that it's nutrient supplied, context specific, as well as making sure that the soil health and soil carbon is maintained. And so as AGRA, we're helping 7 countries right now in some of our programs in making sure that they translate the action plan into policy work. And as Leanne highlighted, we're still in the works, but we're definitely seeing progress in Nigeria and Kenya, looking at harmonization accords that look to, instead of looking at country-specific, but regional requirements for fertilizer volumes, as well as the nutrients required.
Fantastic. And surely 1/2 of the world's landmass is actually rangelands, and that's something we don't talk about enough. If we think about how big the forest sector is and how much that's been a focal point, this coming year we're going to be talking about that a little bit in context. Why is livestock needed in this conversation about soil and nutrients and water?
Thank you. Thanks, distinguished guests, excellencies. It's really good to be here. As you heard, I work for ILRI, and our research focuses on development for the livestock sector, research for development, mainly in Africa and Asia. So that's where I'll focus these few comments. So Robin, you asked why livestock? I think a few reasons. They're key to solving some of these conundrums that everybody grapples with. Tule mentioned food systems. How do we produce more nutritious food without messing up the environment? They're often the most affected systems by climate change. Think of pastoral rangelands. Think of the scenes you see when there's a drought. And they're at the heart of those integrating solutions, which both our speakers have already mentioned, whether they're technical or policy, or actually what happens on the ground. Half of the crops in Africa can only be produced because livestock are integral to those systems. We heard about evidence just now, so I'm going to mention a few pieces of evidence around the land, the nutrients, and the water. As Robin said, we have an awful lot of rangelands. About half of that, 21% of all the land on the planet, can only be used for livestock production. It's too dry for crops. Another 24% is where you have livestock supporting crop production, crops supporting livestock production. This circular bioeconomy that's suddenly become so fashionable in Europe and America, and everybody's doing it here already. Lots of room for improvement, but yeah. When we talk about nutrients, and we've heard our colleagues mention about fertilizer, a lot of the nitrogen and phosphorus and soil organic carbon can come from manure, and those two can work in real harmony. If you really want the best from manure, you put fertilizer with it. If you really want the best from inorganic fertilizer, you add manure in the mix. And then water. I bet you've all heard about this horrific figure of some 15,000 liters of water for a kilo of beef. Ooh. That is very specific to a feedlot, a very intensive system. Most of what we see in the rangelands in particular, only about 4% is blue water. The rest is green water. It's rain that would have fallen anyway and gone into the soil and into the water system. And there's real opportunities to improve the management through participatory rangeland management and some of the things you'll hear from my colleague Fiona in the next panel. Let me stop there for now.
Oh, surely those were great examples. It isn't crops versus livestock, it is working together and respecting the soils that they're based in. Shirley actually mentioned the word integrated. Michael, I think you've been doing a lot of work on how we bring together some of these policy processes in an integrated way. What are we doing to get that water-land nexus together?
Thanks a lot, Robin, and hi, fellow panelists. It's a pleasure to be here. Thanks for the invitation to WWF. And I'm a bit humbled by this great panel of great scientists. And I'm glad that I can answer a little bit on integration. I'd like to split my answer in two parts because I know there'll be great solutions and great innovations mentioned by the fellow panelists. Let me just touch upon some things that might be necessary to integrate into policy packages, which is, I think, how we should be thinking. We heard about systems, we thought about equity principles. The F word starts economic and fiscal instruments. Repurposing subsidies is probably a very good idea, something that we all know we need urgently. Into that mix, we heard about finance, we heard about green, I'm adding to this, green bonds with taxonomy that is science-based is probably a good idea. Another area where another set of policy levers that we can explore is governance and rights. Not only securing land rights, but also having a conversation about what is the trend in concentration, what is the trend in land privatization. Linked to this, can we have integrated land and water use planning that can help us administer land and do a little bit of the protect, manage, restore that I think is such a good idea. I could go on with several policy areas and policy actions. I think there's a long range of tools that WWF, other partners have been pushing out, where a lot of these great policy levers are listed for policymakers to have a look, integrate them into their climate and biodiversity strategies, to their land degradation neutrality targets. But I wanted to pass now into the second part of my answer, which is more to focus more hands-on on integration, because sometimes it becomes a bit of an abstract, high-level space. What do we mean when we talk about integration? There's a great study that just came out in October, looking at 197 countries that have, and seeing and looking, examining whether they have created cross-sectoral coordination mechanisms to address food systems, and the understanding that we have faced so many challenges that probably changing the way we govern food systems, land use, water, is a great idea. The study found that 34 countries had created such a type of mechanism. Only 20 of these include participatory channels. So 14 of these integrated coordination mechanisms are only state actors, and approximately the other half also has inclusive participatory channels. The good news, and the reason I'm mentioning this, is that about half of these have been created in the last 5 years. There's, it seems, growing momentum on something that might be a good solution. The other half, part of the other half, were created just in the 5 years prior to the UN Food Systems Summit. So again, I think there's a good trend there. The study says nothing about effectiveness. However, WWF, and with SIAT, UNEP, some other partners, we did a few years back do a little more humble study, which did show that these types of mechanisms are probably a good idea because they helped integrate environmental considerations into policies that are now, right now, being implemented. So I think, as a catalyzer, these integrated policy mechanisms might be a good idea.
It's fantastic. Here we are at a place that we've got lots of stakeholders in the room, and I think understanding that we need to respect all of them is really, really important. It makes a big change. Lee, I'm going to come back to you just to build on that. You're working in a space where you're actually addressing many of these things in quite a frontline way, bringing in the farmers, the pastoralists, bringing in yourselves as scientists and leaders, working with local communities and governments. How do you make that real, that you can advance the protection of soil through these mechanisms?
Thanks, Robin. Not an easy question that I'm unprepared for. Actually, I think it's quite easy. I'm looking at my friend Jacob, who's from northern Kenya. When you travel to the pastoral communities in northern Kenya, do you know what you see most? Soil. You see bare soil. It's very easy to connect with farmers, pastoralists, ministers who used to be farmers or pastoralists, and talk about soil because it's so prevalent. And it's also easy because we demand so much from our soil. We demand these nutrients to feed the plants, feed the people. We demand the soil to act as a sponge and hold water so it doesn't erode off. We demand the soil to be a habitat for all the microorganisms, the most biodiverse ecosystem in the world. Yet when it's degraded, soil cannot provide these services. And it's obvious. You can see it. People who are connected to the land can see it. So I think rallying people around something that's so visible and bringing it to their awareness, because yes, you can't see everything below your feet, but if you see an erosion or a gully erosion, it's very obvious. So I think it's about sharing that experience coupled with data and then translating it in some way that's digestible. So I love graphs. I love box plots. How many people here love box plots? Yeah, like 3 of us. So showing box plots to a minister may not be the most effective way to get them on board, right? But showing photos and explaining the depletion. So I think it's really about bettering our communication and having the community around us. I know we're finally building that momentum since the UN Food Systems Summit. Thanks for bringing that up. And so being willing, especially as a scientist, to maybe not show all the box plots that I want and bring the data to where people are.
It's fantastic. You mentioned Jacob. How many pastoralists and farmers do we have in the room? Stand up. Stand up. We want to honor you. Come on, Lily at the back. There we go. Fantastic. So I'm going to tell you, we're going to go to you. There's only going to be one question for the panel from this audience. So raise your hand if you want to be that person. It'll be from your group. Thule, Lee's been talking about getting into the community, working on the land. You're also doing some work a little further down the value chain on food loss and waste, which is also a land-water nexus. Tell us a little bit about AGRA's new program in this area.
Thanks, Robin. I think actually it takes well from what Leanne was just highlighting about food loss. It's not just the productivity loss, it's also, in soils, nutrition loss, it's not just a loss in productivity, it's potentially also affects food loss, right? Because you have less nutrient-dense foods produced, and then we've seen an increase in food loss on the farm and off farm. Both, and I think for a lot of people, they see food loss as more a logistics or storage issue, but it also affects soil health, right? And so as AGRA, we have a new investment with the Global Climate Fund, working in 7 countries again. And it's focused on making sure that when farmers are, one, using the right nutrients for their soil, when they have deployed the correct extension services or advisory services, it is then on the loss at harvest, right? So how do we then ensure that we don't lose that harvest to then degrade the soil in terms of how we keep saying that we demand so much from soil? I know it's like a tenuous reach, but for us it certainly has helped because it's part of, one of the components is looking at carbon in the soil and how do farmers then earn value from ensuring they're maintaining or increasing the carbon in the soil. So it's still a work in progress. It's currently being implemented. We've been 1 year in. We're seeing a lot of support from governments, actually, because the NDCs have really leaned in and recognized that soil health, food security is all a part, it's all interlinked, and it's part of the NDCs. And working with private companies like OCP that make sure that we have the right nutrients, context-specific, and appropriate for the soils and the countries we're working in, we've definitely seen a dramatic change in the food loss.
Fantastic. I don't think it's tenuous at all. It is the foundation of resiliency. Shirley, what are some of the gaps that you're seeing in this space, and what do you think are some of the opportunities?
Thanks, Robin. I wonder if we've heard of the Eat Lancet report. Who's heard of that? This came out a few weeks ago. A high study, lots of modeling, and lots of experts spent years and years and years on this, telling us, here's what a healthy diet looks like, here's how we should make it sustainable, and here's what justice looks like in the food system. It's given us a lot of space to think about that and to think about what we're talking today in the context of food systems. We held a dialogue at ILRI a few weeks ago with some of the authors, the commissioners of that, and we had people discussing that from health and environment and agriculture, from research to ministries to farmer representatives. Everybody bought into the idea that, yes, we need to work in this integrated way. But the next question was, how on earth do we do it? And I think the food system pathways that many countries have actually help us start to do that, because they do give a platform to start to bring together this diversity of disciplines and of actors with the aim of sustainable, healthy food produced in a way that's just and fair, etc. And so I really hope that we can use some of those pieces, like food system pathways, and there's lots of other mechanisms too, to bring these pieces together. We can see that reflected in the need to connect. So my key word here is connecting across disciplines in the context of food systems. And I think in many cases for ministries as well, we often find that all the pieces we've talked about here sit with different ministries, so we can talk about integration, but at the policy level it might not fit so well together sometimes. Thank you.
Oh, Chule's going to jump in on Michael.
I
I'll
always
give
have a
second.
reaction, Robin. No, I'm just taking from what Mark and Shirley just highlighted about an integrated approach, one that's been successful in Kenya right now, even though we are not in those sectors, we're just in food as AGRA, is the livestock sector working group. It's brought in government, it's brought in across ministries, not just Ministry of Agriculture and Livestock Development, but also land and water and finance, but private sector. Remember, we're talking about financing. It's also private sector and the private players and some of the groups that work directly with the with livestock pastoralist communities, and just highlighting some of the challenges they're facing. And when a ministry puts in a ban on something, how it affects the other, parts of the sector. So I think it's important that we also look at some of the successful options that are out there and how we can model and copy them. Sorry, Rob.
Excellent. It's perfect. Michael, over to you. Let's bring this panel home. We're going to go into the audience for that one question, but let's bring that panel home with how we do that integrated policy. We've got lots of acronyms, NCDs, other things, and now we've got this wonderful new initiative from Mongolia about a land-water nexus. What do we need to do to integrate these concepts?
Thanks for the question, great question. And it's come up these days at UNEP a lot. How do we choose the solutions? What can inform when we're discussing trade-offs? What can help us inform that decision and manage the trade-offs? I think a solution is kind of integrated to my first answer on why we need ministries of health, of finance, agriculture, environment to work together. And I also mentioned that it's probably a good idea to have inclusive mechanisms so that pastoralists, for example, and other actors are integrated into the into the policy-making process, the decision-making process. That idea on participatory, inclusive decision-making stems on equity, and it's been mentioned already, just as has been mentioned by Shirley, and that's fantastic. Equity, I think, can inform how we make choices, and the Excellency keynote speaker mentioned solutions are not just technical, they are political choices. So equity is something that can be a guiding principle and sort of a lighthouse to illuminate the path. I'd say there's growing evidence that's showing that there is a bit of a power imbalance in our food systems, and that is hindering the uptake of many of the solutions we've been talking about here. It's not like solutions don't exist. There seems to be some barriers to their uptake. There even seems to be quite some rollback in recent times. Case example of the EU, where some advance in good policies for land use, water, soil, etc., had been put in place and are now being rolled back. That power imbalance, growing evidence is showing that stems from increasing power concentration of some actors, and that there's probably some good solutions there for us if we use equity as a guiding principle. The UN Committee for World Food Security's high-level panel of experts has pushed out a couple of reports that are very useful in that sense. I think it was 2-3 years ago, their inequalities report, and just this year, the resilience report, which is the theme also of UNEA 7 now. Great blueprint for how you deliver resilience and how you unblock transformation by rebalancing markets, by rebalancing the current power imbalance that we see. I just like to add also, particularly if the audience wants to have more reference on what might be solutions to this power imbalance. WWF with some other partners, we co-lead the UN One Planet Network Sustainable Food Systems Program. We held our 5th global conference titled Overcoming the Barriers to Food Systems Transformation, together with the Coordination Hub of the UN Food Systems Summit. There's a great outcome document that also illustrates a long range of equity-driven policies that can deal with this matter. I don't want to finish without mentioning what this equity guiding principle is all about. It's about materializing human rights, not just invoking them. We cannot just mention human rights and think they're going to happen on their own. WWF is about to publish a study that will illustrate, based on the work by CFS, based on some work by the WHO on the commercial determinants of health, illustrating how to materialize human rights with equity guiding principles, redistributing resources, benefits, and opportunities within the food system and across food system actors is the way to go. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much. And I know Jacob has a question. So how perfect to go to a youth pastoralist leader to ask our next question, and then we're going to move to our next segment. Jacob?
Thank you so much. And thank you, Lei, for that shout out. My name is Jacob Lekaitogo. I'm the president of the African Youth Pastoralist Initiative and also the global coordinator for the International Year of Rangelands and Pastoralists Youth Working Group. Having a question to Mike and Lei. How can people support pastoralists to promote healthy soils now that we're celebrating pastoralists and rangelands next year? Yeah.
Okay, Asheoling. I think that we are seeing a turning point in rangelands, not least Mongolia hosting the COP next year, but in East Africa, we're seeing a lot more investment in rangeland restoration activities. Hopefully everyone here knows we have the AFAR 100 commitment to restore 100 million hectares of land across Africa. And originally, people were thinking about forests. And then they realized there's absolutely no way to obtain the 15 million hectare commitment in Ethiopia, the over 5 million hectare commitment in Kenya, and so on, without including farmers and pastoralists. So I think it's just our responsibility to constantly remind us that forest and landscape restoration includes farmers, pastoralists, and so I think we're a bit fortunate, but of course more to do.
Michael?
Thanks for that great question, and I'm glad you asked it. I think part of the answer was a little bit embedded in my previous answers, but I'm going to jump precisely. I focus very much on national level countries and governments. How can people support pastoralists? A lot of the changes that we're seeing in governments creating these cross-sectoral inclusive mechanisms is pretty much based on a silent mushrooming of these type of mechanisms at local level, where the rubber hits the turf, the ground, where issues, the frictions occur. One example of these that you can categorize are food policy councils that have mushroomed all across the world, which have integrated all actors that are particularly vulnerable to the issues that we have been discussing today related to food systems. So I think promoting those is a good idea. I mentioned the WWF report together with UNEP and CIAT. The main key message there was we need finance for these great inclusive mechanisms because they are delivering. Thanks.
Thank you so much. Please give a round of applause to our wonderful panel. And thank you to WWF and Jao Campari for all the work they're doing on rangelands. We're going to dive deeper into that topic shortly. And first, as we switch panels, I'd like to bring up Her Excellency Veronica Garcia, the Ambassador of Costa Rica to UNEP. Ambassador, we deeply appreciate your role in co-hosting this event. Please come and bring us some reflections.
Excellencies, dear friends, colleagues, good afternoon. I'm honored to briefly introduce this second panel, and I'm going to do it very shortly because you really want to hear from the experts, not from me. But Costa Rica is very pleased to, along with our esteemed co-organizers of this event, to open this space to explore how we can transform innovation into real on-the-ground impact on soils, water, and nutrients at this pivotal moment for the planet, through public-private partnerships and country-led innovation. The challenges we face are urgent. According to FAO estimates, over 30% of the world's soil are degraded, while poor water and nutrient management compromises the sustainability of our food systems. These issues not only reduce productivity, they also lead to pollution, increased climate vulnerability, and degrade ecosystems. Addressing them in isolation is not effective. They require integrated approaches that recognize their independence as the foundation of resilience. We already know that science and evidence-based solutions exist. Regenerative practices, conservation agriculture, efficient water use technologies, bioinputs, and locally adapted nutrient management are some of them. These practices are delivering tangible results. The challenge now is to escalate them, moving beyond pilot projects to embed them into national and regional policy frameworks with real impact. Costa Rica has embraced this integrated approach through public policies that promote healthy soils, efficient nutrient use, and agricultural resilience, linking sustainable production with ecosystem restoration. These experiences show that it is possible to act with coherence between global ambition and local solutions, drawing on science, traditional knowledge, and place-based climate action. Effective implementation depends on strong institutions, but also on the commitment of all sectors, political leadership, scientific expertise, private sector innovation, and the practical knowledge of producers and rural communities. Only with genuine partnerships and a shared vision can we move at the scale and speed this moment demands. I invite you to ensure this space, not only one of reflection, but of political convergence. Let us leave here with a clear message. Resilience is built through cooperation, innovation, and action rooted in the territories. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Your Excellency. One of the wonderful things about Costa Rica, amongst many in your leadership on these issues, is the hosting of organizations like IICA, the Jeff, and here you have an amazing actual agronomist working in your representation here. So Luis Fernando always brings an expertise level in this regard. We very much appreciate your leadership. I'm going to call up our next panel of experts, and they are truly august. Dr. Leonardas Vrogotz, who is with OCP as Chief Scientist of NutriCrops, Dr. Rashid Musadek of the Akarda Institute. We have leading soil experts here. Dr. Fiona Flinton, who is with the International Livestock Research Institute and part of the heart and soul of the work on the International Year of Rangelands and Pastoralism, and Dr. Erica Rios from FAO Rex Soil. Erica, we've got you in the row there. We'll just bring you right up. Just an amazing group of experts here for us to begin diving a little deeper in these issues. So we're going to move a bit more to that implementation part of the question. Leonardas, you're doing a lot of work on lowering emissions while improving yields. What's the magic secret sauce there? It's the promised land everyone's looking for.
Very good. Thank you, Robin, very much. I'm glad to be here as part of this panel. Well, today it's really, I think it's a big shift, right? We're talking about rangelands, we're talking about agriculture. It's really how do we feed ecosystem services? Today, agriculture, we are asking to the farmers so they can deliver healthy soils, they can clean the air, they can store water. But today it's really how do we support them on doing this? If we take the African agriculture and the agriculture developing in the tropical conditions, those are the poorest soils we can have on earth. Today, if we take these old soils and we don't feed them correctly, we cannot just produce food. We don't have enough yields, we don't have good quality, nutritious food, and we also don't sequester carbon. So today, how can we shift this? If we take the African continent today, Africa is trapped into a vicious cycle of poverty and land degradation. These poor soils, they cannot sustain enough production. So then the farmers, they cannot produce too much, they cannot make their livings. So they try to produce food for a few years, they deplete the soils even further, then we see all these bare soils everywhere, then they move. Then they do this for a few more years and then they move. The good solution is we can transform this agriculture. Agriculture today, it's one of the sectors emitting the most greenhouse gases, right? But it's the only sector that we can transform and can become net negative in terms of greenhouse gas emissions. How can we do this? Today, 50% of the emissions of agriculture come from clearing forests. If we can optimize what we already use, if we can take these rangelands and we can improve what we produce there, we can not only produce more food, but we decrease the need for more forests. So by doing this, we are just not using agriculture to produce food, but to feed ecosystem services. And then the beauty of all of that, it's really nutrients, they have a very important, it's a central part on it, which is if we see the soils as something alive as we see today, it's like every one of us here. If we don't have nutrients, we are sick. We cannot finish our cycle and we die. It's the same with the plants. Once we are very young, we have some type of, we need a certain type of foods because we have different requirements of nutrients. When we are old, it changes. It's the same with the plants. How can we now understand what plants need and then we feed them? So now they can not only deliver food, nutritious food, but also ecosystem services, sequestering carbon in the soil, improving resilience against drought, and again, changing livelihoods. So I think today what we see, it's again, the beauty of simple things. Sometimes we talk about innovation, maybe like with the feeling that waiting something miracle is gonna come. What we need is already here. How can we now feed these ecosystem services so we can really now make agriculture a tool for climate action?
That's so compelling. Rashid, when we talk about these issues, you're doing some work on dryland cropping areas and actually that front line of desertification. So we were talking about losing forests. Leonardus was discussing that. We're also losing land to just not being green and having life on it anymore. How do you see that fight evolving?
Thank you, Robin. And I want first to thank the organizers, the government of Costa Rica, Morocco, and CGR, OCP, for giving us this opportunity to share our thought about these really critical questions. Let me first say, what is dryland? Dryland is 40% of our area in the world are dryland. Around 60% are in Africa. It's the home of 2 billion of the people, and most of them are smallholder farmers. Unfortunately, these dryland are the most vulnerable now under these climate conditions. I'm coming from country, Morocco. We have just suffering from 7 years of drought, successful drought. We'd never seen that before. And it's come to us as a scientist asking, do you have solutions? Do you have any to answer these questions on dryland where soil, unfortunately, have low organic matter, nutrient depletions, and they are most degraded in the world. Fortunately, there is work done by CGR and also NARS and also partners universities showing since, for example, I give the example of conservation agriculture. It's more than 35 years of working on this in Morocco, but we noted that it wasn't flying, and we understand that something is missing. Unfortunately, the business as usual was done for, I don't know, for several reasons. So we understand that to switch, to propose something for agriculture and to keep forest at least in there, because people, when the So with this program, we observed that conservation agriculture could be a game changer, but we need to put it in the agenda. And my colleague, Dr. Ferradi, highlights that, for example, in green generation strategy, we give this science evidence to the government, and they are putting the plan to scale this technology to 1 million hectare for next decade. So we are in the middle of this, because it was 2020 to 2013, and at least with the support of different partners, not only public, private sector also, we involve with us OCP, by the way, and also UMCCP, Helmut. There is a lot of partners come there because we think that to make the change, we shouldn't work in silo. And that's one of the mistakes, that's why this technology couldn't fly. And now we observe that farmers adopt the technology because they are de-risking, because we reduce 60% of the cost for any farmers who want to adopt the technology. And we improve the soil fertility based on these long-term trials that we have set through, thanks to CGR, ICARDA, and all partners to have these long-term trials, proving that we can shift from can I say, degradation to have more aggregation, from deep pollution to more, can I say, more nutrient management developed. And now we have also moving for something like monocropping to more diversification of the system. And these solutions now we adopted with farmers, and we are reaching around 400,000 hectares for this year, which is also something important to highlight. So technology is there, but if you want to scale it, there we need to have this kind of collaborative effort in dry land. What we can do under 300 millimeters, they are very limited choice. And one of the solutions also that we try to promote, integrated fertility management, was said by my colleague Lee. And we are creating also a working group on soil health to make it in the agenda, because we think that this is the key. And that, you know, if you store 1% of organic matter in soil, it's 100,000 liters of water that you can have. And this is very important in dry land. And that's why also we're trying to promote what you call it supplement irrigation, water harvesting. You know, if you just added, this is something that we get in the research recently, just by adding 40 millimeters more, we double the production in dry land. That is also something that we need to highlight, and I hope that this technology can fly. Thank you.
It's amazing, some extraordinary numbers there. Rashid was alluding to some of the land management techniques, and you, Fiona, have particularly worked on pastoralism, rangeland management solutions. How do you see this coming to the on-the-ground level to address the land-water nexus?
Sure. Another innovation or set of innovations that we've been developing under the CGIAR and in ILRI, in particular, but with other CGR centres as well, is participatory rangeland management. And it's not rocket science, actually. We were in Ethiopia around 15 years ago and saw the problem of pastoralists not having secure rights to their land, but seeing the success that there have been in participatory forest management in the country and how it was being really embedded within the government system. So we said, well, if PFM works, why couldn't PRM work in rangelands? And we adapted the participatory forest management process to rangelands and put it out there as a system to test. It was taken up, it's been tested, particularly in East Africa. It's been now implemented across millions of hectares in Ethiopia, now being implemented in Kenya and Tanzania. And I mean, most recently I've seen that the government of Kenya have included it in their strategies for going forward next year, and IGAD as well. And I think what the difference is, you know, I question myself and say, why is there a need for another community-based natural resource management process? And particularly here in Kenya, there's so many. But I think it's really the difference here, and one principle that we really hold on to, is that this is the community's process. It is their management plan. It is not ILRI's management plan. It is not the government's management plan. It's not the county's management plan. It is the community's management plan. And this process really focuses on building the capacity of the community to better manage their land, recognizing that they are good managers, but you are facing different new challenges, new invasive species, or whatever else. And we as technicians and scientists, we can help resolve some of those problems, work out how to deal with prosopis or whatever, but really the management, the ownership, the leadership has got to be with the communities. And I think this is really what's made the difference, and I think this is why, as a process, it's being taken up. It's not easy, but it's trying to do things a different way, or going back to how things were before.
I think that builds beautifully on what Michael was saying in the last panel. Erica, you're working in rec soil, and you're working on soil carbon and how that links to the nutrient flow, the land degradation. How do you bring those things together in a way that helps communities?
Sure, thank you so much for this question. Actually, it's a little difficult to respond this question because everybody gave us a story. But basically, with rec soil, the logic is to include restoration, also to include soil organic sequestration, and also work with the communities, with the farmers, to include the private sector, also to include national institutions. In Costa Rica, we are working with Agriculture and Livestock Ministry, and also we are working with private sector, with coffee and livestock organizations. So that is a big strategy we are implementing in our country. So rec soil provides countries with coordinated framework to scale up sustainable soil management practices, and also not only to scale these practices, but also to include science-based on national grounded ways. And basically that is the key idea, to include science, to include communities, and also the involvement of the private sector.
Fantastic. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to hop over to Fiona for a moment. She has mentioned private sector, Rashid mentioned private sector. One of the aspects of the work you're doing is specifically on private sector, right?
Sure. Yeah, so some other work we're involved in is trying to make that linkage between and encourage private sector finance into rangeland restoration, working with a set of different organizations, CGR centers, and of course the private sector. And it is a challenge. I mean, we've seen some very good examples of it. So for example, in Mongolia, actually the investment of LVMH into improving the rangelands through a One Health project. And of course, their incentive is to improve the land for their cashmere production. But they also need other incentives. And one of the key tools that we're helping to develop and will actually be launched at the UNCCD COP is a standard, a rangeland standard. So similar to the frog that you have on a chocolate bar, which tells you that your chocolate cocoa has come from sustainably developed, sustainably produced cocoa, we're anticipating a similar standard for rangeland products. This will be launched at the UNCCD COP. ICRAF, Lee and her team are helping to develop the rangeland monitoring system for that. So this is something we hope that's very exciting, but will provide that incentive, that reward to private sector and other actors who are producing things from the rangelands to do that more sustainably.
Excellent. Sometimes we forget what comes from rangelands. Do you want to give us a couple of concrete examples?
Sure. Kashmir, for example. I mean, the Mongolia economy is centrally pinned on Kashmir. In South Africa, we have mohair. In Latin America, we have vicuña and alpaca. These are all sustainable fibers. And then, of course, we've got rangeland products such as gums and resins, aloe vera, And then, of course, we got the livestock itself, so beef, lamb, milk, etc.
We're better than UNEA to talk about the importance of natural fibers. I hope we're all wearing them. Rashid, let's just pick up a moment then on how you actually take some of these issues. There's a part of private sector we don't talk about as private sector because they have sometimes less agency. But smallholders should also be small businesses that can make a decent livelihood. Tell us a little bit about some of the work you're doing with some of them.
Thank you, Robin. Again, you are right because the most vulnerable in this system is smallholder farmers. And we understand, by the way, if the innovation are there, the adoption of any innovation was very low because we maybe first we was focusing in the innovation and we forget that we should be farmer-centric. And from that, we try to develop through CGR, ICARDA, and all colleagues from NAR system, and also involve the private sector, because we understand that it's complicated. And we try to do like just last 4 days, I was in an event about the role of extension services to explain those innovations to smallholder farmers. And we understand that as researchers, scientists, we need to have strong extension services with us. Whatever, should be public, should be private, should be in NGOs, but we need to what we have as science, maybe with the, as scientists we develop some complicated message, we need to be using it in a facilitating way and to explain to those farmers, because most of them are just concerned by the yield, by the income. They are not concerned with the organic carbon increase. They are not this kind of, can I say, non-value function are not clear for them. But now, thanks to some partners, private partners, coming with us to explain to those farmers that if they adopt these innovations, they can increase first the productivity, they can increase their income, because that's the most important thing. By the way, why they adopt CA in Morocco now, it's not because of organic matter. No. Because of the cost of the energy. We give them this technology because it's 60% low of a cost of the energy. So they say, oh, okay, you bring me something that at least make me in de-risking. I will not put 100% of cost in the beginning. I put only 40%. And also, they say that they can at least have the same yield or increase it in drought conditions. So we are proposing this innovation to farmers in some way, and we are doing like a communication plan to make it simple for them. And we use some program like Soil Doctor and also other program that we develop with some partners from FAO and also with our colleagues from Al Mujmir and also the Moroccan extension services and other countries to show that these innovations should be in simple way to be adopted by farmers. And we are trying also to ask support from the government because we understood that unfortunately several programs was mainly focusing for those large farmers, and now we ask for government to support through some mechanism like carbon credit system now, those farmers who want to shift and do the effort to move from some system, intensive system, so some sustainable system. And that's kind of innovations, as you say. If you want that to be adopted by smallholder farmers, we need to help them as an ecosystem and bring them this kind of solution with some support in financing.
Thank you so much, Rashid. Leonardus, what kinds of incentives really make that possible for all the work that he was talking about? What do we need to do on policy and incentives to make this real?
Very good. First of all, again, as a private sector representative here, I think just for us to be here as part of these discussions, this is already a big win, Because at the end, the private sector, it is a branch to execute as well, right? All the policies and everything that we do. For us at OCP NutriCrops, at the core of our agenda, it is the farmer. At the end, as it was discussed by everybody here, the main transformation actor is the farmer. We have to understand them and bring the solutions that they need, which was very well said by Yuri. If we don't do this, we're going to discuss here, bring policies, bring a bunch of things that at the end we will just, most of the time, don't have at least the results that we are looking for. So today it's really how can we support the farmers on doing this transition. So first of all, we need to understand what do they need. So we take the most limiting factors. If we talk about soil fertility, what is the most limiting factor so then you can help them produce more? What is the most limiting factor of a farmer in the rangelands of Kenya? So what do they need for now? They start to break out of this vicious trap of poverty and land degradation. And we talk a lot that, again, yes, we need the right policies, we need all these things, but all of us here together, we need to understand what do they need. First of all, what is the most limiting thing that they have now? Once we tackle these ones, we start to take them out of this vicious cycle of poverty and land degradation. So for us at NutriCrops, and we are bringing lots of incentives on that, because today it's what we are requesting to the farmers. You produce food, nutritious food, but we want cheap food. And we also want you to clean the air, clean the soil, store carbon, store water. We are asking all these requests, but we are not ready to pay them. So how can we bring the incentives to be able to support them? So now the farmers, they have a choice. So does it have a value for me to sequester carbon in the soil so then I can adopt all this technology, which they come ready to help with energy and so on, but then they have an informed decision to make it happen. So what do we do as a private sector? So we have, for example, our carbon farming programs, right? Turba program, that they are supporting the farmers on this transition. So the message is the private sector, we are here. Soil health is at the core of our strategy with the farmer centricity. So we are ready to work with all of you. So again, hoping that from these UNEA 7, UNEA 8 and the next ones, we can really reach not only policies, but how can we take on the hands of these farmers and really support them on this transition. So for me, it's really, I love even the previous panel, Lee, Mike, and all the other ones, because we are coming to that. It's not only we bring the policies, but how we really understand the farmers and we support them on this transition.
I love that. We have to give farmers and pastoralists a decent living. It's just so important. Erica, you have the challenge of taking that kind of market incentive and policy framework he was talking about and helping countries deliver that at a national level, both on biodiversity and climate. How do you do that?
Well, I think it's very important, as our colleagues already said, to include farmers in the policy, the actions we are taking at national level, because, for example, farmers know what they need to produce better and to increase productivity. So it's essential to understand what are the needs in the farm. Also, if we don't have healthy soils, basically we don't have the option to increase productivity. And I think that is the main idea FAO and RegSoil are working right now. And also, we have the option to create capacities with doctored soils. We have a program with farmers, and they understand what is going on with the soil to implement practices. So that is the base of what policy is doing right now, directly with FAO and national policies. And on the other hand, I think it's very important to integrate national programs. For example, in Costa Rica, we are implementing NAMA and livestock NAMA and coffee NAMA. And that is linked with national adaptation plans. So I think all these elements are very important to, in this case, get a strong policy and, of course, to have an impact directly in the farms.
I love that you're also working in coffee and livestock. We've touched on fibers. We've touched on crops, horticulture. We need an entire food system to be respected across all the aspects of agriculture as defined at FAO. I'm going to turn to the audience for another question. There was a wonderful woman farmer who had her hand up, but I don't see her in the room. Next year is also the International Year of Women Farmers. Do we have a woman farmer in the room who'd like to ask a question? Or a farmer? No? Oh, hey, right there.
Hi everyone, my name is Lavender. I'm the founder and CEO of Climate 360, where we are innovating climate insurance for farmers. We deal with farmers across the region in Kenya, so I can speak on their behalf. One of the things that I'd love to ask is the different initiatives to enable innovation within the agriculture system, especially here in Kenya and the continent at wide. One of the challenges we face in innovating, especially in the finance insurance sector, is access to data, yet there are so many research projects that have been done and they're sitting on shelves that could help young people create the startups, the innovations that can open up access for farmers to be more climate resilient or to access better finance products. So I'd love to hear from the audience.
The F word from the prior panel. We love it. All right. Well, if we're going to talk F words and data, I think, Leonardus, that goes over to you for a start, given all of the work that you do on data.
Hello. So no, it's thank you very much, Robin. Thank you for the question. I think this is what we were talking about when we need to support the farmers, right? So it is always a science-based approach. We had Lee before and all the other ones. But the good part is, yes, we need innovation. Yes, we are developing them. But today, we need way more the extension services that Rashid was talking about to really implement what we already know that they work. So, and this is also an innovation per se, which is innovation in business models, in the way we finance the farmers, because at the end, we don't need something else to come. With what we already have, we can do a lot. So, and then we have several examples on that. Again, I come from Brazil. I come from a farmer's family. When Brazil learned, up to the 80s, Brazil was a net importer of food. When Brazil learned how to use these acidic, poor soils that we have there, which are exactly the same as the ones especially found across sub-Saharan Africa. When we learn how to deal with these soils, with, again, innovation was in how do you put things together. We transform the country, right? And this is, and then we go to this, what we can do as a phosphate, the biggest, largest phosphate fertilizer producer. These soils, they are very poor. And these soils, in the tropical conditions, the most limited nutrient is phosphorus. So when we talk about using fertilizers, usually we take them as they're fertilizers, they are all the same. No, fertilizers, they are a source of health, they are a source of nutrients, but they are different. What do your crop need and your soil need, and when do they need it? So when we bring already the right source, the right time, the right placement, and the right amount of nutrients, you already start to break this vicious cycle of poverty and land degradation, because the African farmers are asked to produce food and take care of the environment in the poorest soils we have on earth. So for that, we need innovation. How we're going to ensure access of these farmers to what already exists? And this is some of the things that we do as OCP NutriCrops. For example, we have school labs that they go around teaching farmers, but this does not solve the finance part. But then we have AgriBooster. AgriBooster is a very interesting program that we go from the finance part to all the other inputs until the sales part. How do the farmers, they can sell their crops better so that they can start to break this vicious cycle and really start to invest. Because what Africa needs today, it's good businesses, right? So then at the end, supporting the farmers. And this is what we are doing. So we have already mapped more than 54 million hectares of soils around Africa, so we can understand what the soils and the crops need to support the farmers. And then we are ready to continue to do so. Because again, as an African company, we are here to support the development of the whole continent. And this is part of what we do. We are glad to discuss more afterwards.
Amazing. And I know one of the great innovations in insurance on the livestock side was the move to focus on insuring based on weather. So rather than allowing animals to die and the disruption that creates in a pastoralist community, to focus in on the short rains did not come. What is that going to mean for available feed and fodder? How can that insurance kick in to make sure feed and fodder can be brought to those animals to keep those communities alive? And I think that's the kind of innovation we need in the insurance part and some of the finance part of the system as well. And amazing work, Leonardus. With that, I'd like a big round of applause for our panel. And we have truly talked about different crops, different livestock, different parts of our ecosystem. We hope that these will be represented in the discussions that we have at CCD. But we also have had multiple different kinds of stakeholders involved in this discussion. We've heard from countries, we've heard from scientists, we've heard from academics, and we want to bring closing remarks from a vital part of that system, our multilateral system. Doreen Lynn Robinson is the Deputy Director for Ecosystems at UNEP. She's going to bring us our closing remarks today. Doreen?
Thank you so much. I'm not actually going to say much because everyone who spoke before me has had some profound ideas, and I don't know how to top that. But I'm excited to have heard today soil as a solution for sustainable development. We often hear about water as the great connector, but today we heard about soil as the great connector. And I think that's a different narrative that's gaining momentum, and we have to keep pushing to keep that momentum going. I have two reflections based on the deep listening that I was doing today. And the first is about integration. I heard that word a lot. I heard de-silo, I heard collaborate, and I've heard about a lot of amazing initiatives and perspectives on how to do that. But integration is not easy to do. It simply isn't easy to do. And I'm coming from UNEP, Science-Based Policy Institution, but what I will tell you is that science is not enough. Political will is also not enough. Both are foundational. More effort on behavior change is needed. Integrated policies and action also require institutional change and incentives. Not everyone is a systems thinker or a connector. I've learned that. I manage about 400 people. It doesn't come easy. It seems like all the systems thinkers at UNEA are in the room here today, but it doesn't come natural for some people. And so we have to create incentives for that, and that has to be institutionalized. I don't know anyone also in the public or private sector, and certainly not farmers, that aren't overworked. No one's sitting around saying, let me take on one more agenda, one more mandate, right? I don't think anyone's doing that. So we have to run our institutions differently. We know we have to integrate, but do we know how? And then that takes us into a space that just making the case essential, but not enough. We have to back it up with really practical things. Things that we don't even think about in a room about soil health. We have to think about our HR policies. We have to think about our mandate review. Here at UNEA, there's been a lot of questions about UNEP's mandate in the context of UN 80. A lot of questions, and they're excellent questions. But if we're talking about integration, where do mandates overlap, and how do we incentivize everyone staying in their lane, but also all driving together on the same highway? And that's not easy to do. So I think changing our institutional focus is a big part of it. I think the second point I wanted to make, and I can't read my notes, so I'm just going to make it up, is accountability. We talked about win-wins today. We talked about optimization. It's another one that sounds easy, but it isn't. It's not easy to do. We are here at UNEA 7 because we have a triple planetary crisis. We are here, very tired here at UNEA 7, because of how humans use land and water on this planet. And so we have to get real about trade-offs and assumptions when we're talking about optimization and win-wins, or even sometimes I hear win-wins, win-win-wins. They also aren't easy. So science is essential for putting those trade-offs and assumptions on the table. Science is essential, and the science of measuring those is also essential. But we also need to mediate those trade-offs assumptions and put them front and center in our policy-making processes. Someone mentioned in the first panel our cognizance of power differentials, and we need to create real agency to bring more voices into the solution-setting processes while honoring the process of how governance works on this planet. I couldn't agree more that equity and rights-based approaches are needed, but yet that's another perspective to integrate in. So again, let's get practical, let's get real, and let's use science to put those metrics and measures into how we discuss these topics. I have the pleasure of running, I think, the deputy, the largest division in ecosystems, and food systems work sits squarely in my division and the former branch that I became a part of, that I came from. So I promise you, UNEP is your partner in this hard to do, but necessary to do, integrated way to go forward together in support of member states. And thank you for giving me the pleasure and the honor of wrapping this session up. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Doreen. Thank you to our co-hosts, Morocco, Costa Rica, Minister. We look forward to supporting you. Thank you to ILRI and OCP for co-hosting this event. Thank you all for being here. I believe there's coffee on a slightly cooler, more breezy terrace. Thank you all.